Hello there, sugar pie dumpling dykes. I always wanted to start a podcast like that. I hope that's well received. I mean it with love, my little dumpling dykes. I am SophiaSpallino. I am your host of Queer Women Rising. I'm a lesbian in the South who was raised to think she was straight for so long and now has a lesbian dating platform where we have women around the world falling in love. And I have this podcast where I share queer love stories. So if that was your first little introduction of me, God bless your heart, because it only gets weirder. Welcome to Queer Women Rising, where I phone lesbian friends to talk about how to dodge the dating drama and help us all prepare for the really beautiful, intentional, peaceful connections that we all deserve. It's going to be a good time today. Life updates. I am now recording this mid-February. I'm about 45 days into my breakup. I'm eating like normal again. I'm taking care of myself. My nutritionist would be very, very, very proud. I remember like 2 years ago when I was really, really sick with mold poisoning, I hired a nutritionist. Shout out to my girl, Stephanie Mercurio. And she was helping me eat and learn what a balanced diet looks like and take more rest. As an entrepreneur, oh my God, that's a tricky one for me. But she was teaching me about a balanced diet and making sure like I'd stop working long enough to eat. And I don't know about you guys. It's not that I don't think I deserve to eat or something like that. I just get like into a passion project and then realize it's 3:00. Like literally right now it's 2:15 as I'm filming this and I'm looking at the half-eaten breakfast that's still on my desk. And it's just because I got excited, okay? I got excited. I got too into what I do. It is what it is. Anyways, I'm proud to admit that I am eating really good, like a lot. Like I'm back to feeling good post-breakup. I've created a home. Like this is no longer just a new house for me. It feels like a home. We have another freeze coming up and I have to do like home shit on my own since I don't have a mask daddy lesbian to do it for me or a super femme daddy who wants to go take care of the plants. I've got to go cover up my plants tonight because we're going to freeze again in Louisiana. Global warming, climate change. We need to call it climate change for the people who don't get it, because this is what's causing crazy things in the world, like extreme cold in Louisiana. This is the South, honey. We're not supposed to have snow. We're not supposed to have freezes. And now I've got to go cover up all my plants thanks to you guys. So that's what I've got to do tonight. Not an easy feat. I don't like getting dirty. That's another thing. I'm really proud of myself. Like I finally like have a home. I was really afraid to do that because I thought, oh my God, like apartment life is just so much easier. But I have an incredible yard guy and he just comes every couple weeks and does everything. And I don't touch any weeds, but I have. And my mom is still in shock that I've kept a couple plants alive and potted them myself. Yes, I did. The day before I went to go get my refresher manicure, I potted the plants myself. I'm extremely proud of that. And I have 2 house plants. I'm going to get another one. I want one for this room, but I don't know. There's not like enough light in here, I think, in the corners where I'd want the plants to go. So we'll see about that. I might have to just get a fake plant for in here. But the plants that I've had so far are real and I'm really proud of myself. And if you're listening to this and you're like, Sophia, but you're an adult, like that's what adults do. They take care of plants, take care of children, things stay alive. I am a late in life lesbian who has been very, 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 very focused on career. And I have not kept anything alive, not even a little cactus on my desk. So just know this is a huge feat for me and I do expect applause. Speaking of plants, I got my first 24 roses. Got roses. First roses received since going through a breakup. And I don't really know what that means for me. I don't really know if that means that I will begin going down a dating journey, going on dates with this person. I don't know. I'm not sure how to proceed from here. We will see. All it means right now is that I got roses. I still feel like there's a lot of self-reflection that I'm doing, and I'm extremely focused on my work right now, making Queer Country Club the very best place that it could possibly be, which, by the way, that's my lesbian dating platform for monogamous, extraordinary women only. And yeah, I'm having so much fun with that. We've done so many updates this week, so many tech updates this week, and women are falling in love. Last night we just had a Meet Your Future Wife live, and we had 80 women RSVP to this event. And these are women around the world, primarily America, but we have members from all around the world. And what's really cool is the reason it would be really hard for me to like end a relationship that just obviously wasn't right in the past was the fear that I would never meet someone extraordinary again. Like, how am I going to meet someone that I'm like obsessed with? And I just realized I'm like sitting here cozied up in a blanket and like I didn't even take it off to film. Anyway, if you're not watching the podcast, what are you doing? It's on Spotify and YouTube now. You should be watching this. But with that being said, I'm cozied up in front of my rainbow wall with a little purple blanket, and life is good. And I got roses, and I don't need to date right now, but when I'm ready, the Queer Country Club has so many women, and like last night I was hanging out with them, and these women are passionate and creative and just have a lot of good things going on for them in life. Like, dude, if you're on lesbian dating apps, like regular queer dating apps, like my heart goes out to you because you got to swipe through a lot of garbage. And Queer Country Club is just a different place. It's a better place. So if you're interested in learning about how it works, you can DM me, Queer Country Club, on Instagram. And I would love to tell you more about it. Or just go to queercountryclub.com and apply. Honestly, just apply. You're not going to find a better way to date out there if you're a monogamous lesbian. Oh, another update about Queer Country Club. We like launched a retreat when I was like going through it. Like I just like, you know how like you go through breakups and you get a little manic? That was me. I was like, I'm going to just plan a retreat. I'd put going to Canyon Ranch on my vision board. I wanted to go with my partner this year. And then we broke up and I was really sad. And I was like, I'm gonna still go on this trip. Like, just because I ended a relationship doesn't mean that I shouldn't do every single thing on my vision board that I wanted to do with my partner this year. And one night I was just up a little too late and I was like, wait, like I don't have to just go on this trip alone. I could invite all of the incredible single lesbians in the Queer Country Club. And then I realized, okay, I can't invite all of them because there's a lot of members at this point. Like, it's an extraordinary community, but I can't invite everybody. I physically can't. So I want it to be intimate, intentional. Anyway, we have 7 incredible, beautiful women coming with me on the first retreat. By the time this podcast airs, the retreat will probably have happened. With that being said, we had a lot of women who were like sad that we couldn't accept anymore for this trip. So I've been working on the next retreat, and by the time you hear this, it's either going to be out or it's going to be sold out. Most likely sold out again. If you want to get on the retreat wait list though, or you want to see if there is space for this upcoming retreat that we're going to be hosting in May, then DM me the word retreat. Now, with that being said, this is not a basic ass retreat, okay? I'm not taking my members on any vacation that I would not take with a romantic partner. This needs to be top of the line, creme de la creme, like luxury beyond luxury. And, you know, I'm a bougie bitch, but I love easy, cool luxury. I love casual. I love being able to like show up in my sweats, but like be the badass bitch, you know, like I was telling the women in Queer Country Club last night, like a lot of them in there extremely successful. They downplay their lives. They're really chill, but they've got their shit together, if you know what I mean. This is for the women who enjoy the finer things in life, but want to go somewhere where it is a chill vibe and they want to have a spiritual renewal experience. If that sounds like you, like you're like, yeah, Sophia, let's go get facials, let's go get massages, let's go like do all the things. I don't know what specific activities I will plan for future retreats. I have a feeling it's going to fall in line with what I'm talking about now. If that is you, DM me retreat and let's get an application in if there's one available. If not, we'll put you on the wait list. I do personally go through the applications. I'm choosing women I personally want to hang out with and will contribute to an incredible vibe inside of our space. So yeah, if you're interested in coming with us to Canyon Ranch or wherever our next retreat may be, DM retreat. Okay, today's guest. It was such a fun interview because I got to hear her engagement story. If you love lesbian love, you're gonna want to hear this. Today's guest is known as Alrighty Aphrodite on Instagram and TikTok, but her name's Haley. She found her voice as an advocate for LGBTQ rights in 2021, transforming her journey of self-acceptance into a platform for change. Through public speaking, poetry, content creation, she's built a space where queer visibility thrives, and now she's a published author dedicated to amplifying our voices and fostering powerful connection. And the love story she has with her partner is just the intentionality. If you are a lesbian who's like, I'm looking for real, I'm looking for depth, I'm looking for a partner who goes above and beyond in like the sweetest, most intentional small moments, you're gonna love this episode. Welcome to the show, Haley. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We're gonna have so much fun. So as you know, I put the L in LGBTQ. Proud lesbian, late in life lesbian, scream it from the rooftops because I didn't get to live it for so long. How do you identify?
Yeah, I definitely identify as a lesbian as well. And I think it's funny because it's one of those things where I think, when you say you're a late in life lesbian, I feel like a lot of us feel that way because if you don't know right away when you're 13, it seems like it feels very late no matter what. So I especially appreciate your content for that.
Thank you. I love your content. You keep it raw, you keep it real. There's so much that we've gotten to see in your world. Now you're married and you have this beautiful life, beautiful wife. What is it like? Is it as hard as people say marriage is?
You know, I might be a little bit biased because we've just been married for a little shy of 2 months now. But I have not found married life to be difficult.
I'm
And I
so
feel
glad to hear it.
yeah, I feel really lucky to say that. I think, of course, I've been in a lot of different types of relationships throughout my life, but this is by far the easiest relationship I've ever had. And it's not for lack of desire to move forward or lack of protest with life, because I think that's an important part of marriage is recognizing that you're two different people and you're gonna have two different opinions. But one of the reasons that I just knew that Regina was my person is that we're very polar people. We've got a lot of personality between the two of us, but it doesn't feel hard. And that was something I thought and was kind of taught growing up that, marriage is sacrifice and it's hard and it's brutal and and we've been together for about 3 years now. And I feel like our marriage is the one kind of safe haven in my life where everything else can be going wrong, but it feels like our
Mm.
relationship is always that safe place to land.
That is so beautiful. That's how it's supposed to be. How long did you date before you realized like this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with?
This is gonna sound so classic lesbian fashion, but when we had been together for maybe 8 months, and when we were 8 months in, we were looking at rings, we were picking things out. But I think when we actually knew, like, okay, we're ready to move forward with this decision, we were about 2.5 years in.
Hmm. What would you tell people who are dating and they're curious, like, how do you know? What do you feel? What do you not feel when you're with the right person? Because I think we all know what it's like for it not to be right up until a certain point. But it's really hard when you really like someone and you want something to work, but it's not meant to be. And then you get into a situation where you're looking for the signs. Well, things are okay. Do we move forward? Do we not? How did you know this was more than just okay? This was your forever person.
That's a really good question. I think, of course, it looks different for everybody. What feels right for me for a permanent life situation is going to feel different for you, and for every other person as well. But for me, I think I noticed that relationships are full of compromises, right? Because we're two different people, we're in different bodies, we have different upbringings. Rahina and I
Mm.
come from different cultures. There's a lot of compromise that happens in between the lines there. But for me, the compromise that we made and have continued to make together feels expansive. and not
Mm.
contracted. And that was a big thing for me because I've been lucky in my life to fall in love with a lot of different people, a lot of different kinds of people. Um, but this is different for me in the sense where when things get difficult or when there's friction or when there's uncertainty, I think I feel like the world is bigger when I'm with her than it feels by myself. And I'm a very, very independent minded person. I'm a very expressive person. And I think that's a novelty that I hadn't experienced prior to meeting her in any person, in any friendship, in any relationship, in any companion I've ever had. I've never felt like the world was so big and in the best way possible. I hope I'm articulating that clearly enough, but it
Yeah.
just feels like when there's difficulty, I don't have the feeling of like, okay, I need to solve this all on my own. And for me, even, and this is just a personal thing, but for me, I had never really wanted kids, for example. I was like, I don't know that it's for me. And I still don't know if it is. I think it's one of those things where if I'm in the position in life for it, great. And if I'm not, that's great too. But I, before I'd met Rahina, I was like, no, 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 no way, no way, no way. And with her, I'm like, maybe I could. And we're both very neutral on the stance, but it's more of the sentiment of I can picture a lot more experiences in my
Yeah.
life in general because she's in it. Because I feel like I have a partner who is equal and capable and can stand on her own 2 feet and bring so much into my life where she's pushed me to points
Mm.
that I never even thought were possible. You know, when I met her, I started to travel. I started to learn different languages. I started to become more of a person. And I'd never experienced that with any other human being on this whole planet. And so there are a lot of answers to that question, but that is my biggest feeling is of expansivity with her.
That's so good though, because I think things can be great with somebody, good enough with somebody, but there's something that feels not expansive. I can look back to every single relationship and be like, but there's something that feels like I'm being held back in some way, shape, or form if I stay in this relationship. Whether that's me as an individual or my career or just knowing that there is a more aligned match, it doesn't feel expansive to stay in it. And so, this actually, you're like, am I articulating this right? It actually is one of the first things that really hits me compared to the way anyone's ever explained it, because that's the only feeling I can pinpoint when something's wrong, when everything's okay. It doesn't mean it's the person, but it was okay. Like the last relationship was healthy and felt really good, but it didn't feel expansive at a certain point. And that feels, I'm sure someone else listening is like, oh my gosh, like that just clicked for me too. And maybe it's going to help someone not stay in a relationship longer than they should, because your future wife, your future partner should make you feel that sense of expansiveness. And like, you're like, I'm a whole person with her. She's made me even more of a whole person, like less enmeshment, more wholeness in yourself, which is really interesting. So, you as an individual, Haley, what does that look like? I know we see on social media, we see you and your partner. Tell us about you. What's your career like? What's your dreams?
Yeah, I think that changes every day. That's a big thing for me as a person too, and it ties into my relationship also because Rahina is also one of those jacks of all trades where she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, and we both find that really invigorating. For me, I've taken a couple different paths in my career. I actually started my degree is in HRM with an emphasis in employee law, so I started doing like payroll, HR kind of stuff, very back end employee relations sort of things. I worked in recruiting for Apple for a little bit. But ultimately now I'm working in social media, which is a big shift. But I've always been a very creative person. It doesn't matter how practical or tactical my career is. I'm always going to be doing some sort of like crazy art project on the side. During quarantine, I started a big self-portrait series that was portraying a lot of surreal elements of what it felt like to be trapped inside. And I had a couple of magazine publications with that. So I don't think I'm ever going to pick a path. And that's the thing I like most about myself, honestly, is that I think, you know how they say that saying, it's like a jack of all trades is a master of none. But the initial saying was, a jack of all trades is a master of none, which still has more power than a master of one. The phrase has been kind of shortened to fit a specialized society that we're in right now. And there's respect to be found for that there too. But to answer your question, I guess I don't have an answer, and I hope I never really find one because I like tinkering around. I like talking to people. I like expressing. And as long as I'm in one of those realms, I think I'll be happy.
I love that. What about your partner? What is lighting her up in her career? Because it sounds like you guys are both badasses in your own way.
Yeah, when I met her, get this, this is so cool. She was a nature survival teacher. And I was like,
What?
what is that? Like, I've never even heard of that career. And that's so her, that's so indicative of her. And so, yeah, there are a million different skills that go inside of that. And now she's working in BSS, which is like an intermediary communication in business. She works in the precious metals industry. So we toggle back and forth between doing very technical corporate things and doing things that are just totally out on a whim into our niche interests. And I think we're going to feel very alive, hopefully for a very long time through that, because we're always shifting and changing pace. And yeah, I love it, because throughout my life, when I had been in love, or even with close friends and companions, there always is this rhetoric of like, okay, you have to pick one thing and you have to get really good at that one thing. And that's great for some people. Regina and I, we're just not those people. And so that's what I mean, kind of lacing back into that answer with expansivity, was that I remember the first time I wanted to do a really big career shift. I was working in the recruiting industry, hiring engineers. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to do social media full time. And I think most people would have looked at me and been like, hey, think it through, slow it down. And she was like, you should do it right now. It's just this immediate on board energy, because we have this trust that, hey, listen, you're capable, you've got a lot of different skills, and whatever you do, you're going to be great at it. And I think that's one of our strongest bonding points, is that we're not creative in the same ways at all.
Yeah.
We're very, very opposite people, but we have that same spirit. And I think that's huge for me in a life partner, for sure.
It is. Having a partner with that onboard energy is everything. If you have that entrepreneur or creative spirit, you need someone who's going to support that. Otherwise, it would feel like someone's kind of dimming your light or just doesn't get you. Yeah, that's one thing that I noticed last night. We had a meetup in the Queer Country Club, and we had the coolest, we always have the most badass when it comes to career women in the world. But one in particular is like a YouTuber that has like these crazy sponsorships and travels the world. And she's like, yeah, I need a partner who's like encouraging me, because my life changes every day. I'm successful, but it's not stable. Even though I'm successful, like it's always shifting. And so much of what I do as an entrepreneur, I can feel that way. Things shift. And when I've had partners in the past, it's kind of like the number one thing. Like, I need like a cheerleader, and I'll be your cheerleader. But whether you are in corporate and you just have like a drive to climb that ladder, or you're like creative with your little passion projects, those little passion projects need to be celebrated big and honored by your partner. And it's beautiful to hear that you guys do that. And I just think the world does not see, and if you're in a small town like me in Lafayette, Louisiana, you don't see how many extraordinary queer women exist, not only who are like driven, but like creative. And so just hearing stories like yours, knowing there are women out there that find each other and support each other, and you're not going to be alone, and you will find somebody who supports you and believes in your dreams, is huge. You said something interesting about how you didn't think you wanted like a baby in the past, and now you're like neutral, which is so odd, because I feel that way so hard. Like, I thought I'm not going to want that. And then I met my last partner, and she was the kind of person that like I would really want to raise a baby with. And the only reason that I thought, well, maybe not, is because I was kind of enjoying like being her baby. Like, let's just travel baby less, essentially. But there was a moment where I was like, actually, like, I would want to raise a baby with you, because you're a whole person. You said the word capable. And so I think as women, we've struggled in the dating world, but when you meet someone, you're like, oh, wait, like this can actually work. Like there's straight women out there who do this with a man. A man! Raise a child with a man! Oh my God. Anyway, so what was it for you about your partner that's like what traits and what is it about her that you're like, hey, like a baby isn't number one on the list, but like if you could accidentally get me pregnant, I wouldn't mind.
That's totally it too. Well, I think in order to answer that, I also have to reflect on the past a little bit because every other relationship I've had, I've felt the total opposite, where I've been like, no, no way, no way. And I think also the idea of wanting a child or not wanting a child, there is sort of this meta narrative in society that's like, when you meet the right person, when the right event occurs in your life, then you'll want it. And I don't want to perpetuate that either. But I think for me in the past, I couldn't see it because if I'm being honest with myself, I don't think I could see a full blown future where I wasn't fearful that I would have to be the most, I want to articulate this correctly, the provider of everything, almost the provider of
Yeah.
the domestic labor, the provider of the financial stability, the private, there are just, I think, people that, and with all due respect, that I've loved very deeply in my life, that I didn't feel secure enough to bring a whole person into the world, because it's all fun and games when it's just me and my creative pursuits and maybe my partner and our travel plan, and that's great. But to have the confidence to bring a whole human being into the world and say, hey, listen, I'm going to do my best to teach you how to be a good person and to teach you what I know and what I think, and then let you take it from there and develop your own sense of self. I feel like you have to be so certain of the person that you're with that if, and it will happen, life will happen, you're going to lose your job, you're going to get sick. There are things that'll happen. And making sure that the person you're with is somebody who is going to be able to suffer well. I heard somebody say that
Mm.
online the other day, and it struck me so deeply, because basically what she was saying was something to the sentiment of that when you choose somebody to marry, you have to choose somebody who's going to suffer well, who has the endurance to face what life has to throw at you. And
Mm.
with Regina, it's not just that I think she's a person with a lot of endurance and a lot of capability, but it's also that, this is going to sound wild, but stay with me here. I feel like I could maybe want a child with her because I also know that I would just as readily choose a life without a child with her. You know what I mean? In
Mhm.
my marriage, my wife is going to be number one always. And it's a very person to person thing. But for me, I picked you in life. Like, you're my person, you're half of me now. You are my number one. If you want kids and that's right for us, we'll do that. If you don't want kids and that's right for us, we'll do that. I'm okay with that as long as I get to spend my life with you. And so there are a lot of answers and there are no answers, I guess, in summation. But I think the difference for me was that I just feel like she's someone who has the ability to live any life with me and vice versa. I
Mm.
could live any life. Truly, I could be a multimillionaire and be super rich, or I could be making nothing. And we joke about that, her and I, frequently. She's always like, oh, you can open up a stand on the side of the road if that's what you want to do, and I would have such a happy life with you. And we both feel
Mm.
that way. So it's like there are a lot of unexpected elements of this life. And that's why I always say, I could have a kid, I could not have a kid. I have no idea where my life is going to go. And I think the acceptance of that with the person that I'm with is what makes me feel that way?
Yeah, no, I do. It's like it was really scary, at least for me late in life. When did you come out? Was how old were you?
I think I was 22, which felt late to me. I know it's not late, but it feels late.
It felt late. For me, I was like 26 when I admitted to myself I was bi, 28 when I came out bi, 29 when I was like, oh, I'm a lesbian. Like, I'm never, like, after I slept with the woman, I was like, oh my God, like, I'm never doing anything else again. So for me, it was like, I kind of thought, well, here I am at 29. I guess I give up the idea of the picket fence life, the stable forever marriage, the child, because I'm late. Like, I'm not going to meet someone who wants to have a baby right now. I don't even have my life together because my career was built on my ex partner's career, helping him build his business. I left with nothing. I can't bring a child in the world financially. How I have so everything you're saying really makes sense to me because I didn't want to even if you have a partner who has their shit together, anyone can get a divorce. Anyone can be left with a child. And so you have to think, am I able to do this on my own if I had to? Or you have to have a partner so amazing that you can't imagine them ever wanting to do life without you. And that's when you bring a child into the world where you're like, no matter what suffering is thrown at us or individually, this person would never turn against me and would always be the best parent in the world to even co-parent with. If you don't know that for a fact, you shouldn't reproduce, especially as beautiful homosexuals who get to choose that we reproduce. There's no accidents here. We get to very intentionally choose who we want to procreate with, and how, like, it's so cool. We don't have any babies that are accidents. Like, we get to intentionally be like, I want to make a good person in this world. That's a big responsibility.
It is. And you're right. It's a very deliberate choice. It's not like, I've been thinking about this a lot actually, because I have a lot of friends who are in straight relationships or straight marriages, and they're getting to that point where they're having kids. And it's so interesting to see the difference between what we have to think about versus what they have to think about, because it truly can happen accidentally. Um,
Yeah.
which is, it's so exciting for them in some ways, and that's so great, but it's an entirely different process for us. We're talking about investing probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in the initial process of even maybe being able to get pregnant. And then beyond that, the different treatments that we would need and all that good stuff. So it's such a different process. And so, yeah, it does have to be very deliberate, even more so than typically it would be.
Yeah. So everything's just flipped on its head and more expensive. And then, of course, there's like typically queer women are a marginalized community. So there could be economic disparities, and like it's that much more expensive, yet most of the time women make that much less. And it's like, whoa, it's so deliberate, and it's truly a privilege to have a child. With all this being said, I know that you and your partner don't do traditional gender roles. And as you were going through your beautiful relationship, I saw that you, the feminine counterpart, might I call you, were the ones to propose, and how shocked people were that you proposed to your more masculine counterpart. Can you tell us about the proposal and how you planned it? Did she know? And people's reactions after?
Oh, our proposal story was kind of an odd one. So, um, so we of course had a preliminary conversation prior to me proposing, and I feel like that's an important one to have to make sure everybody's on the same page. We're all good. There are no surprises, right? Beyond the surprises you want. And
Yes.
so I started my proposal planning process, and it was so elaborate. I'm a very elaborate person. Probably not a surprise there. But so here's how I had planned it. It happened so different than the way I had planned it. So there was this park that we used to take our dog to. And the park was really heavily symbolic for us, because the first couple years we had been together, it felt like outside of us, like outside of the relationship, it was disaster after disaster after disaster. Like we lived in two different apartments that had gotten swatted, which was insane. We had been through like job loss, and just it was a lot of different things that were hitting us from all angles. And when we moved to a different house on the other side of town, and we started taking our dog for walks around this park, it was around the time that life started to get a lot easier for us. It was just circumstantially, you know what I mean? Just things happened to be going a lot smoother. And it was a place of that represented a lot of solace and a lot of peace for us after a lot of just crazy things that were outside of our control. Um, in those months, even like our landlord broke in and stole all of our stuff because they had a misconception. But when the lease date ended, like it was truly like we didn't feel like we were stable anywhere. And anyway,
That
all
is
that to
horrible.
say, it was horrible. It really was. But anyway, so
Like, I have so many questions with, like, did you get your stuff back?
I'm not allowed to talk about it too much because we did go
Okay,
through
then
a lot with it.
don't
But
do it. Don't do it then.
Anyway, so the park represented a lot of just like tranquility for us after a period of a lot of upheaval. And we used to joke during that time. We were like, oh man, like I'm really glad I'm with you because I think if I was with anybody else, there would have been issues in the relationship. And that was the craziest thing about it is we were under so much stress and our relationship was still good, which is
Mm.
insane because the amount of stuff that was going on was out of this world. But anyway, so I knew I had to do it here at this park, but I didn't want it to be the classic, like, oh, we're at a park and I'm going to get down on one knee. I'm more detailed than that. And so there were these canoes that you could rent and take out on the little lake around there. And so I had just met a new friend that my now wife had not been introduced to, hadn't seen her, didn't know her. And I was like, oh, how fun would it be if I planted a stranger and her husband in this canoe? So here was my whole plan. She was going to pull up in the canoe and was going to be like, hey, listen, we have this reservation for another hour, but we have to leave. Like, do you guys want it? And I knew that Regina would be like, yeah, of course, because she has that nature about her. And so I had a whole playlist gathered and a little speaker to put in the canoe, like the whole 9 yards, photographer in the bushes, because that's just, it's simple, but it was such the nature of our relationship. And like I said, she was a nature survival teacher when I met her. She loves to be outdoors. I was like, this is perfect. So while I'm planning this, I'm speaking to our mutual friends about it, right? Because there were a lot of bells and whistles that needed to be put on it and things that needed to be arranged and planted. And I actually had a little ring box that was in a walnut shell. And that
Oh
was,
my gosh.
yeah, it was to like be like, oh my gosh, that's so, because walnuts don't grow where we live. And she would know that. And so it was my intention to kind of like put it in the bottom of this canoe, be like, oh my gosh, like these don't grow here. What is it? Knowing she would pick it up and open it. Because she would pick it up, crack it open. That's 100% what she would do. Um,
I love that you know her so well. This is so thoughtful.
well, you get one, right? You get one. So I was like, it's got to be perfect. So I'm telling my friends about this plan, our mutual friends, the whole way through. And at the same time, she was planning a proposal for me, which was eerily similar in nature, like eerily similar in nature. Um, Same thing, but with a kayak was more or less what she was planning. But I was
Oh.
a little bit ahead of her. And so I'd planned this whole thing out, scheduled it, booked the photographer, the whole 9 yards. And oh, the story gets even longer. So there was one month where I had planned to go to Guatemala because I've made a commitment to myself at least once a year to make sure that I'm traveling solo. And that's just a commitment I made to myself a long time ago because I used to be the type of person who would lose myself in relationships. So I was like, no,
Mm.
I need to make sure that I'm going somewhere I've never been before, putting myself in uncomfortable circumstances so I'm still in touch with myself. So this trip was coming up, and Regina had just gotten a promotion. It was a really big promotion at her work. And she was so excited, but it was going to involve a schedule change. And the important thing about this is that I was intending to propose right when I got back from Guatemala. So I didn't have, and this was like a month-long trip. So I didn't have a lot of other time to arrange anything. Everything was booked. She's like, oh yeah, I'm going to have a schedule change. And I had booked this whole thing for the days that she would now end up working. But it was too
Oh no.
ridiculous, and it was a new position. So it's not like I could be like, hey, request these days off. So what? So I can take you on a walk to the park? Like that wouldn't have made sense. So um anyway, so I was very anxious about the schedule component. And I was like, hey, do you know your schedule? Do you know your schedule? And she knows me very well. And so over time, she started to become a little agitated. She was like, why are you so worried about my schedule? Like I got a promotion. This is not the time to be worried about my schedule. And, so I had a couple friends weigh in and make a story up of a trip they wanted. It got very messy. And eventually she came to me and she was very upset. And she was like, listen, I feel like you're prioritizing your schedule over my promotion.
Okay, real quick, I need to tell you about Wisp, an online healthcare service that is for the girls, gays, theys, and me. In fact, for 3 years, they have been a part of my daily regimen. I know many of you listening long to create beautiful, women loving women relationships. And that, my dears, begins with excellent kitty care. Like, no offense, I don't know about you, but I personally don't want to be at a kitty cat cafe, if you know what I mean, that doesn't provide the freshest dessert for me to lick. So do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, and keep your kitty cat cafe fresh. With Wisp, everything from the consult to receiving meds is done from the comfort of your phone, and the company is proud of being inclusive, cost effective, and accessible for everyone. Wisp believes that you know your body better than anyone else, which means no more urgent care visits for issues such as UTIs, yeast infections, or STI treatment. You can save so much time not going to in person appointments or waiting in line at pharmacies. The free shipping will save you so much time. Or same day pharmacy pickup can have you feeling better faster. Before Wisp, I was prone to getting BV, but my kitty pH balance stays perfect. Chef's kiss now that I am on a consistent probiotic regimen. Ladies, this is so important. Personally, I subscribe monthly to Wisp probiotics, Sexy Time Lube, and OMG cream. It's like female Viagra. I also get D-mannose and boric acid vaginal suppositories as needed, so I'm prepared if something starts to fill off down there. Also, if you're about to meet a new partner from my lesbian dating platform, you definitely want to be tested before sleeping with someone new. You can order discreet online testing from your bed before you jump into bed. Go to the link in the show notes to learn more, or go to hellowisp.com and use my code SOPHIA for 15% off. That's code SOPHIA, SOPHIA, for 15% off all your kitty needs. You're welcome. Okay, back to the show.
And I was like, oh man, because my anxiety about the schedule had definitely been showing. And
Sounds stressful to me as an OCD person. I'm like, oh, I'm nervous for you.
I know. And this was like, maybe 4 days before I was supposed to leave the country for a month. Like, there's no way I can handle this out of the country, right? I didn't even know if I'd have reception or what was going on because I was backpacking through a lot of the country. And so, we're on the phone and she's really upset with me, reasonably so. I would have been too, in retrospect, I would have been too, because she didn't feel celebrated enough. And I was like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. And she's like, hey, I'm going to have dinner with a friend. I'm going to let you go. And she hangs up the phone. And I was like, shoot, so I call my mom, I call my dad. Like, what do I do in this situation? Like I made the situation such a mess. And it was something that I intended to be special for her. But, she didn't know I was planning to propose. She didn't understand why the schedule was such a priority. And both my mom and my dad separately, they were like, you have to tell her. They were like, you have to tell, you can't let her go to bed feeling undervalued. Like, you have to tell her. So I'm like, okay, but if I tell her, then she's going to know the ring that I picked out because she's a very, very, very picky person. And we had been at a pawn shop actually like a month prior, and there was this ring, and she just lit up when she saw it. And she was like, oh my God, I love it. And it was very similar to a ring that had been her grandfather's. And she had lost it on a night out when she was like 20 or something like this. And she'd beat herself up for it ever since. She was like, oh my God, I love it. I love it. I love it. And I was like, do you want it? Like, I can get it right now. And, it can be your wedding band. She was like, no, that's okay. That's okay. We go home. And like a week later, she's like, do you think that ring is still there? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And she kept mentioning it. And I was like, why didn't you let me buy it at the time? And this was so heartbreaking. She said to me, she was like, I don't feel like I deserve something that's that nice. And I was like, oh, forget it. So, of course, I run back to the shop. Thank God they still had it. And I bought it. And so I had to play it off like, oh, I went back. They didn't have it. I'm sorry. So, point being, the ring was a big part of the surprise of the proposal. It was the only one she'd ever liked. She's super specific. And
like a grandpa ring. One of my best friends has like an engagement ring that looks like a grandpa ring, and it's like so hot on a woman. I love it.
yes. Oh, I know. I loved it too. And it's so her. It's so classic. It's timeless. Anyway, and so when I got off the phone with my parents and they were like, you have to tell her, you have to tell her, I was like, if I tell her, she's going to know the ring I have and whatever. And so I called my best friend at the time and I was like, hey, like, I think I'm going to propose tonight. And she was like, okay, like just clean the house, take a shower, put something nice on, like I'll grab some flowers and some wine and some beer and I'll bring it over. Like, okay. So I line like the whole house with candles and everything. I put, the playlist I'd intended on, flowers all over everything. So she calls me back. This is the worst part. During this whole process of me setting everything up, she calls me back and she's like, "Hey, I'm really sorry. Like I think I overreacted before. Like you do deserve to know your schedule and I think I'm just under a lot of stress. Like I'm really sorry." And here I am on the other end of the phone, setting everything up and I'm like, "No, I'm sorry," because it was valid that she felt that way. It totally was.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she gets home and the music and the candles and everything, but she doesn't even suspect anything because we're both big romantics. Like this is something that I do not never, right? Like I probably do this once every 3 months. And so she comes in, she sits down, she tells me about her day, and we're laughing and we're talking, and I'm shaking. I've got this ring in my in my purse next to me, and so I tell her everything. And I'm just like, "Hey, listen, this is the way I'd intended it happening. But and I do consider this to be one of the cornerstones of our marriage, is I was like, I am always going to prioritize the way that you're feeling on a given day over whatever else grandiose is going on. You know what I mean? I would rather you feel loved and respected by me than have some grand gesture. I have the rest of my life to give you grand gestures. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But I don't want you to go to bed feeling like I don't value you or like I don't celebrate your success. And that's always going to be my number one priority. And as I'm telling her, how I had intended to propose, I didn't tell her the whole story, but how I had intended to propose, oh, her face fell. She was like, "I had that thought. I thought that maybe that was the case. That's why I called you back." So it gets to the point in the playlist where the song hits where I'm supposed to, I've planned it all out meticulously. I'm very type A.
Tell me this ring is still in a walnut.
Yeah. Well, actually, so I ended up proposing twice. So I saved the walnut for another getaway I took her on like a month after I got back because I didn't want her to not have, that glittery sort of moment. So I still did the whole grand gesture. But yeah, so it was just a wood. I bought like three different boxes to put the ring in just in case because I just wanted it to be the right one. So
That's so sweet.
yeah, so I picked out a different one for that day so that I could still use the walnut for later on. And yeah, I got
What
done.
was the song?
It was Disfruto, which is it's basically like a song about being in love with somebody despite the labors of life. And yeah, and so I knelt down, I proposed, and of course she said yes. And she's like, "Wait a minute, wait a minute." She goes running out of, we were on the back patio. She goes running out of the back patio into our guest room, and she comes back with a ring box. And she knelt down and proposed to me at the same time. She was like, "I can't be wearing a ring if you're not." And so it was a very long-winded story, but all that to say
Oh
that,
my
yeah, it's kind of representative of us though. Like I think a lot of things go wrong in this life and things don't go to plan and miscommunications happen and things get misconstrued. But the number one priority always is each other.
Wow. Like the tears. Like it's just she was ready to propose to you. Did she have like a plan or she was kind of just holding on like she had found the ring for you and was just ready for the right moment? What was her thought process?
Well, that was the thing, is she had actually booked everything as well. The photographer, but that's our mutual friends didn't know what to do because her plan was very similar to mine, except for instead of a canoe, she had picked a kayak, which I don't know how that would have worked in a kayak, but um, but yeah, it was more or less the exact same plan, except for she had also hired like a band as well. That's so her, because she wanted to take us underneath in the kayak. She wanted to take us underneath this overpass, and on top of the overpass, she had wanted to write "Will you marry me" on like a banner with a band on the top. So similar concept, but slightly different execution. And our mutual friends, after we announced we were engaged, they were like, "We had no idea what to do." Because you were planning the same proposal, but we couldn't tell either of you to not do it or it would ruin the whole thing.
Oh my gosh. It's so romantic though. I feel like this is like just the epitome of what it's like to be with a woman, like in the most beautiful way. Of course, not everyone gets as beautiful of a magical moment, but like when we fantasize of women loving women relationships, this is like the ultimate example of like just loving each other so well. So bravo, bravo. You're both so blessed to have each other. That is beautiful. And then you said you proposed again in the great outdoors. What was that like?
So here's what I had done. I had planned, after I had proposed to her, my initial plan, right? immediately I was going to take her for a weekend getaway because I wanted to make it special. And so I went to the restaurant we had our first date at, and I wish I had it on me actually. It's in the kitchen over there, but I printed out and laminated like a menu to have them plant on the table for when we, because of course, the proposal, and then I had dinner plans immediately. And so I'd made this whole menu, and I did still execute this part. And it was like, the appetizer, the main course, the dessert. And I had basically highlighted key moments in our relationship where I was like, this is the appetizer was, how we met, how we came together. The main piece was, getting to spend the rest of our lives with each other. And then dessert, I had detailed just a little bit about the getaway we were about to go on and what she should pack. So I took her to dinner, and it was fantastic, of course. It was like the same place we had our first date. So it was very romantic and just very nostalgic. We sat at the same table. We had sat out on our first date also. And then, yeah, immediately I had already put our dog in boarding. I took her home. I had her pack everything. And then we went for sort of like a glamping esque experience because she loves being outside. So I took her to this place called Tallulah Mesa, which isn't too far outside of Austin, in Marble Falls, I think it is. And so there are these big, gorgeous tents that have these glass walls on the front, fireplaces, and a private pool. And nobody else had booked out the whole place that weekend. So it was just the two of us. It was fantastic. Yeah, we just spent the whole weekend doing stuff that she loves, basically. We grilled out, and we used the private pool they had, and we, sat around and told stories and watched movies. And it was just a nice little escape for us. And toward the end of this weekend, it was a 3-day weekend because it was around Labor Day. Um, I kind of executed the same plan, but without the canoe, where I planted the walnut on the ground, and I was like, Rahina, come look at this. And she runs over, and I'm like, do you see? I didn't think we had walnut trees here. And she was like, we don't. And she picks it up and, opens it up, and there's the ring. And I was like, because she had just showered, and she took it off to shower. So I put it back in the box, and I ran over and I executed the whole thing. But it was so special because it was just us. There was nobody else around. It was exactly the type of environment that I knew she would feel most connected and
Yeah.
most comfortable and at home. And yeah, it was special. And I think when I posted that we had gotten engaged and even our wedding content, people were saying in the comments, they were like, I can't find the engagement video. I can't find the proposal video. And I don't have one. And that was very much on purpose because I think I love social media. I love posting, but it was just one of those moments that I think for me was too special to have for anybody but us. Um,
Yeah.
so I prefer that we kind of came away from it with the stories instead of, the content.
I 100% get that. And the love and intentionality that you put into this is incredible. Like Regina, I want to say her name right, Rahina. Is that correct? Rahina is just so lucky to have you, and I'm sure you're lucky to have her. But what you've described is like the lesbian dream, just so you know. Like that level of intentionality, the menu. Did you post something about the menu though later on?
Yeah, the menu I did when I was planting it at the restaurant. I was so nervous. I was like, I hope they don't think I'm too corny for this, but but I had to. It
No.
was too fun.
It was so sweet. And like I remember that post. I was like, I'm pretty sure that was you because I mean, who else would think of that? But yeah, it's just so beautiful, and it gives me hope that that kind of love is out there, the kind of love that would propel me to do something like that for somebody. Like they're so worth that intentionality, and the kind of love that someone else would do that for me. And I'm sure women listening are inspired. Um, it's beautiful, and intentionality is rare. So thank you for doing that for her. It's beautiful. I know y'all aren't tradition like everyone's like mask, femme, mask. I know you had some reactions to people being shocked that you proposed first. Do you have any particular story of someone who's like, wait, who proposed to who?
I think I think that we get that reaction in a lot of different facets of our lives. Because, I think even in the queer community, and that's something I spend a lot of my time thinking about, is even in the queer community, there is that gender role kind of idea that's still perpetuated, where it's like if you present more feminine, then you're the girl. And if you present more masculine, then you're the boy, and they expect you to kind of have those traits. Um, I think for us, it was, I mean, people online, I think, had opinions about the proposal, but I think in real everyday life, it's more about the other roles that we play that people tend to be a little bit shocked by. A lot of times people will expect Regina to be the person that is more outspoken or more dominant or makes more decisions. And our partnership is very much equal, I would say. But of the two of us, I think I have more masculine leaning traits in my personality. I tend to be
Yeah.
more outspoken. I tend to like to make a lot of the decisions. That's inherently me. Um, I do remember though that after I had proposed, we went to a lot of celebration dinners. It was our favorite thing to do. We walked around town. We were like, we just got engaged. So it was one of several. But we went to a dinner, and I remember the waiter said to us, because I'd put on the reservation, I was like, we just got engaged, and he was like, oh, congratulations. He was very kind about it, and he meant no ill will by it by any means. But he turned to me and he was like, "Ah, I just knew you had gotten proposed to because you're glowing. Like, you look beautiful." And he turned to my now wife, and he was like, like, you really did well with her. And so sometimes we'll find that people will speak to Regina almost like she's a man, where he assumes
Mm.
that, like, oh, you just got proposed to, you're glowing, which is lovely.
Yeah.
You can compliment all day, but and it's not worth it to actually be like, actually, like, whatever, we'll just let it go. But that is very commonly the response that we're met with. And I don't think it's ill will from people, but I think we just have our minds so programmed to a very binary idea of what relationships look like.
Oh, 100%. Like, even in the queer community, because, like, as a woman who runs a lesbian dating platform, I have to put people with who they're interested in, right? So a lot of times people are very interested only like feminine with masculine, masculine, feminine, hybrid with feminine, like those sort of things. And so, of course, we do our very best to match people as they want to be matched. And I myself come from the South where I'm used to like men doing everything. And I do want to be like in my housewife energy one day. Like, I do want that. But I also see how partnerships like you have are freaking beautiful. And y'all are both in this. It's like there's because you just said your energy is so masculine, yeah, on the outside so feminine, and at the end of the day that's what we all are. We're all women. We're all wavering between the polarity. So I think it's just so different for each individual. And honestly, like, there's women I've been with who make me more feminine because they're so in their masculine. And so when they bring that masculine energy, it relaxes me. And then the only time I'm in my masculine is like in my career. So with you and your partner, what do you think that her energy brought to you differently than what your life was like before her? Like, does she make you lean into, or is it that she's actually like putting you in that neutral state because y'all are both more in a neutral?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I like the way that you said that too. I was immediately, when you asked it, I was thinking of neutrality. And I think that's why this relationship has felt like the most authentic connection I've had in my life, because I feel like with her, I've been able to decide who I want to be every day. I think in other relationships I've had, I felt like I was put very heavily in my feminine energy or very heavily in my masculine energy. And I think with Regina, we are who we wake up as that day. And that's what
Yeah.
I love among the most of that's one of the things I love the most about our relationship, is that some days I'm like, hey, listen, and we do this a lot in our relationship, where if we're having a day where we're like, listen, I can't make a decision today, we're very verbal about that. We say that a lot, where it's like, hey, listen, I can't take decisions today. Can you just take the decision? And that
Mhm.
little communication is so helpful for us, because yeah, I feel like there is always this basis of neutrality, and I can just be whoever I want to be. If I want to open all the doors for her that day and I want to take her out and I want to pay for dinner, then I do. And we're married, so it's all the same thing at this point. But you get the concept, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
vice versa. If I'm like, hey, listen, I don't want to make a single decision today. I don't want to drive the car. I don't want to do a thing. She's like, okay, I'll take care of it. And I think it's just allowed me to I feel more like a human being with her than I've felt with anybody in my entire life. I don't feel like I have to be anybody or I'm put in any sort of energy. I feel like I just am.
Mm, it's so good. I love that, like, you're saying I don't, like, just honestly, like, I don't want to be the one to make a decision today. And then that allows you to lean back and let her take the lead, and like you just can flow and switch. That's so important. I'll never forget one of my exes who is masculine telling me there was a lot of bullshit that she told me because it was a bad relationship. But this she had right. I remember one day she looked at me and she just goes, Sophia, I'm a woman too. And I was like, damn. And I will tell you, that's the one time where I can look back and go, yeah, I deserve to like not have that expectation of her that day. And it hit. So yeah, I don't know. This definitely makes me reflect. And the truth is every single person that we're with can influence us to shift into different versions of ourselves. And it's really cool that you found this love and have been able to, what it seems like, not easy, because relationships aren't easy, but as easily as possible, as naturally as possible, maintain this love because it is so neutral for you. And no one's doing the heavy lifting here.
Yeah, no, exactly. It feels like you said, there's nobody doing the heavy lifting. We're lifting together. And I've
Mm.
never experienced that in such a raw form. And I think there's a lot of validity to what you're saying with your experience too with your ex, where she looked at you and she was like, hey, listen, like I'm still a woman too. I think it's difficult in queer relationships, and especially in at least for me, in my first couple of queer relationships, to know what role we play. Because we
Yeah.
don't you don't really realize it until you get into queer spaces and get into queer relationships, how much of the way that you behave in your relationships are scripted. Like when I was
Yeah.
dating men, it was like, of course he pays for dinner, of course he opens the door. And when I started dating women, it really made me self-reflect because I was like, wait a minute, what part of this do I want to do? Because I can, not that I couldn't with men, but you know what I mean. It's different. There are different expectations inherently on you, and so that adds to the concept of expansivity for me. But I'd be lying if I said that there weren't moments for sure in my first couple of relationships in the queer dating space where my expectations weren't properly calibrated because it was new. I didn't know how to behave
Yeah.
outside of the role that I had been given and outside of the role I'd been performing. So I hear you when you're talking about that experience because it's such a intense moment of self-reflection that it causes, I think.
It is. It is. And I have to take a moment and share about the Queer Country Club, my monogamous lesbian dating platform. The women inside, they're at a stage in their life where they're like, I want a partner, not a mother. Like I want a self-sufficient person. I want someone who has their shit together. And that's the women inside. They've got an incredible life. They know what they want. If they are more in their masculine or in their feminine, they're very aware of the counterpart that they're looking for. And I love this because it is confusing in the beginning of queer dating. Like you said, it is. You don't know what role you're playing. You don't know if you're doing it because it's scripted or if it's actually what your genuine desire is. Because it's okay to have like that genuine polarity desire. I know I have it for sure. Like I want a daddy, but like I still know that it's important to find someone who's emotionally aware enough to and be emotionally aware about like, hey, even though that we do have like these maybe primary roles, because I am more femme, whatever, like we still are both women and we still fluctuate and we take care of ourselves. We're whole people. If that's what you're looking for and you are single and you're listening to Haley's beautiful love story and you're like, I want to find my future wife, please DM me on Instagram, future wife, or go to queercountryclub.com and apply. I would love to have you inside of the platform if you are monogamous and if you are ready for love. We only accept serious, passionate, driven women inside. Go ahead and apply. And I'm curious, Haley, is there anything right now that like a project that you want to share with people, something about the work you're doing in the world, directing my audience to follow you? What would that be?
Yeah, and thank you for asking that question. I actually just published my very first book this year, which was
Oh
huge.
my God.
Yes,
What's it called?
it's called My Human History, and
Mm.
it's kind of a queer take on a history book, if you will, because in my experience being queer, I found that things are not chronological in the way that people might expect. You know, it's not for all of us, it's not, I realized I was gay when I was 13 and then I came out and then I only dated women and everything was perfect. You know, for a lot of us, especially, you know, for people like you and me who came out beyond adolescence, it's a lot of trial and error, and it's a lot of thinking you know yourself and then regressing back into patterns that don't serve you and learning about yourself in the world. And I found a lot of similarity between the way that that journey of self-discovery operates and the way that human history itself operates, right? Where we human history, it operates in cycles. We think that we've solved certain world problems or solved certain social issues, and then we regress and we go back and we have to fight through it again. And that's hence the title of My Human History. So it's a book of queer poetry that kind of takes you through that entire life cycle of things, from the moment where I was like, oh man, maybe I am queer, all the way up until I found my wife. And so it's really
Wow.
a life cycle of the queer experience. And so I felt very compelled to share that with the world in some way, because I very rarely see people start conversations like that. And that's part of why I've always admired your content a lot as well, is that even in the queer
Mm.
community, I think there are some pieces that are taboo about realizing who you are. Um, so it's available on Amazon. It's linked on every single social profile that I have on Already Aphrodite. And yeah, it's kind of my baby.
Oh, I love it. I love that you've got a baby. I love that you've got art that you're putting into the world and the message is so beautiful, and you're right. There has been no linear path. Like it's even the I can look back and go, "Oh, when I was 5 I had a crush on a girl," but like the world told me I didn't, and the world told me it was wrong. And so to hear queer stories just like you're sharing today, just like you shared in your poetry book, to hear those things helps validate us because we live in a world that's consistently tried to essentially gaslight us into being straight. I mean, just straight up. It's been like, no, no, you couldn't be. No, you couldn't be, at least for me. And so reading that is going to feel so good for the soul. Okay, we'll have a link in the show notes. I'm so glad that you were here today. I'm so grateful that you told your story. I really felt like I was there with you and your wife. And I know that it's going to be a beacon of hope to women who are still looking for love and waiting for that dream proposal or planning the dream proposal. So thank you for inspiring us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I'm so, so grateful for your platform at large. I'm so grateful you invited me on. I've been so excited.
Thank you. It's really an honor. It's an honor to connect with all the queer women around the world. And I mean, if you're listening to this and you're like, I have a platform, I'm a either a creative queer woman or a successful queer woman, or you've got a really good love story, I'd love to have you on because at the end of the day, and maybe you could speak to this, Haley, I think I would have come out sooner if I saw more queer women who looked like me. And that's why I like to have women on the show who don't look like me, right? But I didn't see like a power feminine woman in the South walking. I didn't see lesbians in the wild. What about you? Where were you raised?
Yeah, no, I was raised in northern Wisconsin, and it was an itty bitty town, like 500 people. And I remember the day they installed a stoplight because everybody was like, "We're a city now. We have a stoplight." So there was definitely not queer representation where and actually, I remember there was maybe one or two kids who had come out as gay at my school, and they were put in an alternative school for behavioral issues. So it was certainly not something that I saw growing up. And not to mention, you know, the media at the time was very, you know, if you were lucky, you saw Ellen DeGeneres. And like you're saying, I was like, well, that doesn't really describe me. You know, I didn't really identify with her. And so I was like, okay, I'm in the clear. You know, like that can't be possible. Every girl just kind of feels like this. So I
Yeah.
agree. And that's part of why I enjoy content creation, is because I like to think that maybe there's at least one, you know, young woman or a young queer person who watches my content is like, oh, I resonate with that. And at the very least, that can be a little bit of a flashlight in where they're going.
Yeah, no, 100%. When I started figuring things out, it was like I was ravenous for podcasts and books and poetry books like yours that could help me understand myself. I became obsessed with trying to understand myself, and I get what that's like. It's like you're searching for the validation. You're afraid you're gonna blow up your life, especially if you're late in life. You're gonna like blow up your life for what? For maybe you just had a moment of confusion, and it's like, no, not a moment of confusion. This is very, very real for you. You've probably always been this way. You probably just were convinced by society you weren't. So I love that we get to see that in you. I love how you show up so feminine and free. Keep shining on social media. And thank you all for joining us with Queer Women Rising. Rate the podcast, give us 5 stars, and share this with a friend. Share this with a friend who needs to believe in love, because your dream love, your dream relationship, your intentional love story, proposal, magic is out there for you. Just wait for it. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.